Yeah, so today's topic is mind management. Uh, so, um, okay. So, in mind management, first will introduce the concept or understanding of the mind. So, we have to really understand what what you mean when you say, what kind of capabilities the mind has. I mean, we all know, but I would really explore mind in a way that you can understand it much better. So it will be useful for everyone to help manage it or manage their thoughts, which will in turn mean like a better life and stable mind, and you will be able to deal with situations better. So what is really a mind? So mind is an instrument of perception and interpretation. Okay, so that means that what we see is what our mind actually tells us, right? And how do we interpret things or objects? What we see? So, example, it's like color. We could see, we as humans see color in particular colors, but some animals see the same color in a different way, right? So, same way, mind is like that. So, mind, what we perceive or how we think it is to be, that is our representation of that person or that object. And if you go to see, it's also the cause of our happiness because we see things in a way and things in a bad way or a good way. It determines whether we are happy or not, how we experience, and also what kind of memories we have. Right. So, and one thing very important to know that it feeds on external stimuli. That means it really, if you feel like you can control your mind and stuff, then it is very difficult, especially in our times when we have so many distractions. And usually, even if you sit still in maybe in the mountains or anywhere where there is nobody around or no things around, you still are getting fed through external stimuli, and that is like you see things, you hear things. So until you shut everything, even if you do shut, your mind will still be thinking. If you close your eyes and close your ears, right? So it's very difficult to control. So it really feeds on external things, so it's in constant flux. So that's why it's difficult to control. That means it's already always active. Even when we sleep, it's active, right? That's why we have dreams, and we think in particular, or we have thoughts going in our head. Even when we sleep, even when we are maybe you should have like you should know about, like, if you're somebody is in coma, also their mind is still, or brain is still active because they're still thinking and such. So it cannot remain still. And so how what really happens, what really transpires when we what happens with our brains or minds is, how we think, and how we think, what kind of thoughts we acquire. So those thoughts actually determine, the path that the mind, how the mind evolves. The mind evolves into a more productive mind or a more like a like a non-productive mind. So it really determines how we think about uh, how our thoughts are. So if you go to see, especially in current situation, and it's not only like current generation. If you see in previously, uh, there are already distractions. So most of the time now, especially, external gadgets control our mind. Like, if you go to see like WhatsApp, we always want to message the first thing in the morning, have a cup of tea. Now, if you go to see tea, coffee, and all this kind of, you say like, okay, these are normal things, right? But we really depend on them so much that we don't really concentrate on what, you know, uh, not able to control our own mind, or we rely that, okay, fine, let us, for us, waking up in the morning is, we are not awake until we have a cup of tea. That's what we usually say. Or we are not awake until we have a cup of coffee. And then obviously then there are social networks, right? So we are constantly checking messages or Facebook or Instagram. So so instead of we controlling our mind, there's already, as I said, external stimulus or external gadgets, things control our mind. Even if you go to previous generations or previously, even if they didn't have social networks or devices, they had newspapers where they were constantly being the thing, or they would have got some other news some other way. So there is always this distraction. So what really happens is we spend less time thinking of why the thoughts have come, or why our mood is bad today, or why did why we are not able to cheer up, or how do I get to a good mood. We'll say like, okay, fine, if I have to go to work, I've slept less, let me sleep less. I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning, and I'll be awake, or I'll be ready for work. Instead of actually spending more time on your health, or getting good sleep. So we really rely so much on these external things that unless we do them, it's very difficult for us to stay awake, or in a sense be alive. you know these days. So what really happens is, we end up experiencing too much in our early age, because of these kind of things. And so what happens is there's all this stress, and there's something called as midlife crisis that used to be around 40 years of age. So now it's really come down to 25, 30 years, 30 years of age, because we get so much of, our brains are involved with so much of nonsense, or so much of stuff, that we get really tired. And so that's the reason why we actually think of getaways, vacation, or breaks. We take leaves, or we take vacation just to stay at home, do nothing, because we are so much involved with so many things. So why this is happening? Because there are some techniques which I'll mention, but what we are not able to do is not able to control the inputs that comes through the eyes and through the ears. So if you were there in the last presentation, one of the topics was about how media really feeds us, right? So we are always distracted by how the color of the screen is, or how loudly people talk. That's how they actually control us. So if we are not able to control that, then it's very difficult to control our mind. So most of the time, I mean, smell is hardly anything, but eyes and ears are the main things, right? We hear things, we get distracted, or we see things, we get distracted. So in that way, how do we filter? How do we filter determines really how what makes the mind. It becomes a gold mine, or a garbage, right? So you need to be conscious of what is happening in your mind. All external factors will determine your life. Most of the time it will be like that. If you are always So what we are actually doing right now is always being reactive. Okay, this is happening. Let me react to it. Instead of really thinking about what is going in my head. Why these emotions are there, why I'm feeling jealousy, or why I'm feeling anger against that person, or against that thing, instead of just reacting. So because of so much of external stimulus, or external factors, we are not able to spend time with ourselves. And most of the time, the other things, or other people, or other gadgets determine what happens in our life, and that will continue. And so that will really affect your mind. So what are the techniques that you can do, right, to have a control over the mind? Again, when I say control mind, it is not like how the monks or those kind of people really have control of. So not that, but just these are techniques also for the general public, or general life, or average human being. So one of the techniques is objectifying the thought. Okay, so what you really need to do is, instead of as I said, reacting, you need to think about why the thoughts have come, and how they appear. Why, what kind of assumptions did I make? Is it really that the person is bad, or is it my ego or my jealousy that is this thing? So there are ways to think about this thing. So just take a step back and think about how your thoughts have appeared, and what really affects those thoughts. So as I said, like, take mind away and think, and then you can arrive at a solution much better. You tend to think objectively instead of emotionally. So whether it is bad or good does not matter to you. There is a particular kind of reaction, and that is the right way to react to it. So that's unless otherwise you will be like, okay, always in angry mood, or trying to burst out onto someone. So only otherwise, what will happen is, like as I said, we feed so much on external thing that even tiny bit of thing can make you explode. So think about now, where you're sitting in your rooms, or in a house, and think of having a camera, pointing somewhere in the room, looking at you. So you are the thought, right? So what you actually need to do is, you need to take the place of the camera, and and you need to think of yourself sitting somewhere, so that should be your thought, that you detach yourself from the thought and you think about how your thought has come, or why are you thinking like that. So in uh, most of the cases, you will always be reactive, right? But if you do this, you will be more objectified in your thought. You will understand the other people, you will understand the situation much better, and you will come at a solution much better. So that is one of those techniques. So other thing is regulation. How much how much of something is enough, right? So regulation in time spent of activities. So obviously we spend a lot of time, and as I said, like on social networks, or social watching movies, Netflix, and now we are staying at home. We tend to spend even more time when we have even more time to spend on something which is could be more productive. So sometimes we always ask for this time in a previous, when we didn't have the situation. Now when the time is there, we hardly make proper use of it. If you go to see, so you need to have regulation in the time spent on activities. You cannot really cut off, like you cannot how you make bold resolutions at the start of the year. Okay, I will do this, I will do that. No, that really does not help. You need to regulate. That means you need to spend lesser time on those non-productive activities. And because unless you completely if you completely remove it, then you will always have this addiction. So it's like alcohol, or it's like any tobacco, any kind of things, right? You cannot directly stop it. You can only have regulation. It's very difficult. So you must acquire again good habits. So as I said, like instead of spending time on non-productive things, or we always ask for this time. When we are getting this time, we have to really spend time on good things. And so again, don't consider it to be a restriction of freedom. That's why it's very important that you regulate, you get all those things, but you don't spend a lot of time spending on things which will, as I said, make your mind a garbage. So it is up to you to determine what kind of things you feed it through your eyes and through your ears. Eyes would be like what you see, what kind of movies you see, how much time you spend. More time you spend, you tend to become like you tend to have those thoughts, like what you see. So it's very important to control the external inputs that come in your mind. So other aspect is the relationship, right? So one thing, common thing is like when we get into a relationship, it could be friendship, it could be like marriage, or it could be with your parents, anybody. So it is about sharing, right? So you cannot make it work. You cannot make the relationship work without expecting to give, or if you have nothing to give, right? So if you are only there in that just to take from that person, or you're saying, okay, like, let that person come to me and say sorry, or that person come to me, this thing, why I have to go, and all this kind of things, right? So if you only try to get extract, that is the time it really fails. So even with friends, or it cannot always be that the person always gives you everything. You also have to give back. So why I'm saying is because, as I said, like relationships also is part of this thing, and that is the main factor, right, which determines uh, the stability of the mind, right? So because most of the time it is determined by how we have relationships with people. Only people make us upset. It's very difficult for a mobile or a computer to make us upset. It's only the people which make us upset. So you need to have good relationships. So you cannot get into a relationship considering that you will only get from that person. You also have to give. Okay. So if it fails, if you consider other person as a plaything, like just part of, just for some time, you are spending time with that person, and unless you actually have something to share, right? So one thing to note that, as I said, like the way you are, the way how much knowledge you have, if you have something in abundance and can easily share, you can easily create relationships easily. Now, relationships are not just, as I said, like friends, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, or like marriage or anything like that. It you could have relationship with your manager, your your CEO, all these people, or you could go to a conference. If you can easily talk to somebody, right? You can make a relationship with the speaker. How will you do that? If you have something to talk, and that will happen only if you have something in abundance, you can share. So when you have a lot of knowledge to share, you can easily communicate with other people. So so one of the last points is that before getting into a relationship, like you need to have a control over your emotions, right? So if you don't do that, then when other person reacts, you will really explode, and you will not be able to handle that person. So handle that relationship, and relationship will fail. So one of the things is whatever expect, like okay, anger, temperament, calmness, whatever those aspects are, emotions are, you need to learn to handle it within yourself. So if you cannot do that, if you are not able to control your anger, you won't be able to control the other person's anger when they tell it to you, when they give it to you. Okay, so one of the last things is handling negativity. But as I said, like whenever you have thoughts, or whenever you have thoughts, you need to like detach from it and think objectively, right? So for every negative thought, you need to identify the cause of it. It's very important. There are times that, I mean, most of the time you will react, and it is not very easy for you right now, or to objectively think about it. It takes a lot of practice to actually detach yourself or take yourself away from the thought and think of it as objectively. But but here some other examples are how you can actually identify cause of it, or why the cause is actually what you think it to be. It is not really the problem. You need to go to the heart of the problem. Now some of these examples are like ADHD is attention deficit, where you cannot really concentrate on one thing at once. You get distracted too easily. you know so what these examples are basically is, you think that okay, the problem is something, and you try to cure it in a different way. But actually you need to go to the heart of the problem. And it always will be related to you, or to a very core principle of your life. Yeah. So one of the examples like ADHD, like what is the symptom? Like if you see the person is always distracted, so you always seek medical attention. Like, okay, fine, this person has a problem, this child has a problem, right? So what kind of things do we give? Do we give them tranquilizers or any medicine, right? But what is the actual cause? The actual cause is uncontrolled exposure. That means you are exposed to too many things without having control. Okay. So what you need to be is, you need to be focused. You need to go oriented. That means you need to have few things in your mind. That okay, you will do so many things, or you will do. If you see many people, there are some people. I know that they do so many things in their life. All their life, they're always trying to be something else, something else. Every year they keep changing their goals. So those kind of things, but at a more daily level, like a daily life level, where you get distracted so many things. So another example, which are more general purpose, which will make you understand what I'm trying to tell you, is like one of the example is corruption, right? So how does corruption really occur? So what we really do is, whenever we see somebody corrupt, so what they are trying to exploit a situation, right? Whether it is uh, whether it is by bribing, or whether it is trying to get past it, trying to bypass a particular situation. So it's always exploitation. But what we really do is actually it's really, if you are being corrupt, so what will happen to you? You mostly will get punished, right? But that is not the actual solution. So the actual cause is actually your selfishness, that you are thinking about everybody else. You're not thinking, if you have a pond with, where you can pull, when you can pull water from it, you are trying to get all of it. So you're not thinking what the other my neighbors will be getting, or what everybody will be getting. So that's the cause of it, and being selfishness, being greedy. Another reason is when you commit a crime, right? So crime is, symptom is deviant behavior. That means you you have your behavior is something which is abnormal, or which is away from the rules or regulations, right? So what we really have is, when you commit a crime, you get punishment. But the actual cause is really, you have lust, or you have desire for something, which is way beyond your reach, or you have anger when you commit a crime, or you have pride, you have a lot of ego within you. You know, so these examples are of how negative thought really comes into your mind, and there could be a lot of negative thoughts. There are just three of them. There could be 20, 30, hundreds of them. So what will happen is whenever you think bad about a person, or whether whenever a negative thought comes into you about a person or about anything, about any situation, you need to go to the root cause of this. And the root cause is not always, as I said, the treatment or the the reaction to that. You need to identify the root cause of it. Okay, so we'll get to from the negative, we'll get to the positive. That's happiness, obstacles to. Okay, so what are the really obstacles to being happy, right? So we really don't know. As I said, we don't know how our mind is really functioning. So we cannot we are too much detached. We are too much involved with so many things, and we are not able to identify how our mind really functions. So so mind is conditioned to negativity by bad habits, right? We have too much expectation from people, or from we are not really satisfied. We have social comparison where we are jealous, where we feel impurity. So these are the times when you are always unstable in your mind. Okay, and that is one of the cause why you cannot be happy. Materialism is judging everything by the pleasure it gives, and this is very common. Like if you go to seek at when we are kids, like we were always asking for objects, but as we become older and older, we realize that these objects do not give us much happiness. But this is also one of the reasons why we judge everything by how the pleasure it gives, rather than thinking really long term, that if I could just watch this movie and I could be satisfied, but it has wasted your time and this kind of things, right? So maximize it. So when you are always greedy, not living in the present, as I said, not being satisfied, you always want more and more and more, right? And when you are not able to be you are not able to show gratitude to the other person. So that's these are the things where you have obstacles to happiness. So so one more thing is like it's always you could be angry sitting at this session right now, and if you were in a room, and you could easily uh, spoil the mood of the other people also. So that's, as I said, like, it's very difficult for us to control our mind. It could be really the other person who is making us unhappy, right? So you also need to be very careful when you communicate by your body language, or by as a emails, text, social media. So even if the way you write, the way you write also can show your anger. So that's also one way how emotions get transferred from one person to another. So this could be how you need to deal with this situation, right? So okay, the next thing is about stress management. So again, one of the things which has a lot of issues today is, today's greatest trigger for illness is stress, right? So whatever sickness underlying, as I said, like, underlying cause is stress a lot of the time. So what are the causes for the stress itself? So the causes are negative emotions, always thinking negative instead of thinking positive, right? So you always get stress. Usually the other person is the trigger, and most of the time it is the other person. It's very difficult to, as I said, to get stress from from a device or anything. So maybe a bad internet connection would may give you stress for some time, but it doesn't stay for long, right? So usually the other person is the trigger, and what we end up doing is, instead of thinking, as I said, instead of thinking why the thought has arise, or thinking objectively about that thought, you tend to blame that other person. So we expect them to be fixed, that the issue is with them. But if you see, most of the time, whatever you expect that person will never change. That person is what that person is, right? It is how you perceive it to be, how you have reacted to his reactions, that that has changed your perception about that person. So it could be really distracting. So for you when that person has, but you need to really understand that person. And so you need to we expect them to be fixed instead of our thoughts, like how we perceive it to be. So again, one of the last things very important is, which I always tell many people, is you sometimes don't cannot do anything about some things, but we still keep on thinking long after they are gone, or even maybe about work we have already gone back home sitting comfortably, we are still thinking. So you need to really think whether you can do anything about it. If you have to wait for 5 6 hours, wait for the next day, and still you cannot do anything about it, like you may be sitting away, far away, thinking about some work which needs to be done, but you cannot do anything about it. So that's also one reason why you have stress. So what you need to do, as I said in the first few slides, is you have to have full control over responses, because it's how you really respond to the situation that really determines, as I said, how you think about that person. You can do this techniques, as I said, by described earlier, or the techniques about negativity or about relationships and all this uh, regulation, these kind of techniques which I mentioned. You know, so these kind of techniques also are similar to what meditation really gives you. If you are meditating, then it really detaches yourself. Even the simplest meditation is actually thinking about your breath for a while. So what you are actually doing is focusing on your breath, but distracting about all the other things that are happening in your head, right? So it's very similar. So decision choosing greater good than short-term pleasure. As I said, like you need to really think about, what really will make you happy in the long term, what is really productive in the long term. Most of the time, you end up falling for popular opinion. That means you have certain plan in your mind. You are going to work, or you're going to go towards a goal, or you're going to achieve your goal in certain way. But there's somebody is telling you, you know what, yesterday I watched 5 movies. So like, okay, fine, that person has watched, I also want to watch. So you end up being distracted. So but what has that resulted in? It's just wasted your time. So a lot of the times you are not making decisions, you are just reacting to somebody else, and you are getting distracted. you know so think positive, and these are very common examples. Like you need to think positive, as I said, eat healthy. It's really important. A lot of the times, actually, if you go to see, if you are sick, if you are in hospital, your recovery is more based on your nutrition than about your medicine or any kind of. So recoveries really happen, even extreme cases, like even if you see cancer or anything like that, the recoveries really happen due to nutrition, and it's very important that you have good nutrition. And you need to be social, because again, we cannot live alone for a long time. We have to be with people, and we have to socialize. Okay, learn and be mentally active. That is, you need to keep on learning. You cannot just stop learning. And exercise. I think a lot of times these things have been mentioned in the PDC, so I won't really go over them. So what is basically happiness, right? Happiness is a state of mind. So it's basically not what you think, what you will achieve. If you take your mind away from the thought right now, that is not really happiness, because that desire that only will make you think about things which you cannot achieve right now. So your happiness is actually what you are there, and how you think about the current situation. So learn to appreciate the good in your life. Okay, again, always, if you have, I think I've spoken same point before, like you could look at your life being negative, complete negative, but see how you have ended up over here. Obviously, a lot of things good has happened in your life, right? You cannot simply end up over here, having a job, or working this, having a family, or having kids, or a lot of things good has happened. So another thing is appreciate good in others. So once you have show gratitude, it really, you will feel much better. So again, sharing love, care, empathy, you need to empathize. If you are especially in a professional situation, or actually any other situation also, if you don't have the empathy, you will have really bad relationships, because if you're not able to understand the other person, whether they are higher up or they're lower up, does not really matter. You have to empathize, you have to care for that other person. Okay, and you need to be engaged in the situation. For one of the things way to be really happy is to be really engaged with what you do or what you love. So it could be your work, it could be development, it could be testing, or it could be art. You could draw some things, or it could be like racing, it could be a lot of other things. You could play sports. those are the times where you feel like you have really done something in your life, where you're because your mind is completely engaged, you're not thinking about anything else, you're always thinking of the current situation, right? So when you actually work out, or when you are maybe boxing, or when you are playing football, you're always involved in that. You're not thinking about your projects, or you're not thinking about your relationships that time when you're playing, right? You are in that flow state. That's called a flow state, and that's what you need to do most of your life. So if you do most of the time, a lot of times you will have you will really be happy most of the time, because that's the time you are really living in the present, living in the moment, because you are living in a heightened state. A heightened state meaning you are always, your blood is flowing, you are running. These kind of things are actually flow states, where you are actually living in the present. So this, if you do more and more, actually it gives you a lot of happiness. So the last thing is, when you're young, you always feel objects give you happiness. Like as you grow, as I said before, like you realize it's the mind, but it's your personality which reflects on the object, and you end up thinking about the object or person in that way. So actually, in real life, like how you actually the strength of your mind, or how positive your mind is, or as I said, like whether you can make it a gold mine or a garbage, that actually does not only determine you, it also determines how what kind of relationships you will have, or how you see the other person. If you see a new person coming, and if you have really a garbage mind, you will always start thinking negative about that person. You will try judging that person. But if you are really, your mind is really stable, you will always appreciate the good in other person. So if you see, it's actually not the person who is, the person is always the same. The person could come in, and on different days you could have different moods, and you could look at that same person, in different ways. And it could be, and those two persons have not changed. That is, you have not changed, and that person has not changed. But it's your perception that determines how you look at things, or how you look at objects. Like if you look at a cell phone, whether how it could be like, okay, do you think it's going to waste your time, or it's going to be like, okay, you're going to spend a quality time? It is your perception whether you will pick that cell phone up and start using it or not, or any game or anything that you play, that maybe something that really waste, that really take up your time, right? It's how you think, how you perceive it to be. A lot of parents and old people do not think of the mobile or all these kind of things as, because it's their perception that, okay, this will automatically waste my time, so I'm not even going for it. So that really is their perception. It is, the mobile is the same, or the cell phone is the same for all of us. It does not change, but the personalities of that person really determines what that object really becomes for that person. So that's one of the things which are very important. How, so if you see, a lot of the times it is actually our thoughts, or if it is actually our perceptions, how we think about things. And that's why it's very important that you condition your mind to be a better person, or you think about your thoughts objectively. Instead of being reactive, you think about it how they have occurred. And yeah, those kind of things, as I mentioned, like handling stress, negativity, regulations, are very very important to conditioning your mind, and making you a better person. It will help you have better relationships, and also in your work you will have much better experience. So I think, yeah, that's it. If anybody has any thoughts?
Thank you so much. My name is Jasimuddin. I'd like to say something about this topic. May I go ahead for that, please?
Yes, of course.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thanks for selecting this such a exquisite and consequential topic called mind management. Actually, this is really consequential and very much effective for us. And mind management, whereas this topic has been selected, so I'd like to tell about mind. It is, for the most part, related to the relationship, as you said. It's very much important, indispensable for us to understand, to make this out. So, and another one is negativity, you said, is stress management and happiness. I have just jotted down these four topics to say. This is very much appreciating and very much indispensable for us to say. So relationship is, you said, not only actually bound with a girlfriend or boyfriend or husband or wife. It can be actually outside and surrounding people. The relationship can be happened with them, such as you said, of the team members, colleagues, or manager and CEO. So that's really good. And through this kind of good relationship, we can actually nullify or get rid of our negativity. Negativity is one kind of bad and harmful side for the human being like us. So this negativity can be eradicated by actually making the relationship with other people, surrounding people who we always approach everywhere. It can be happen in the office room or in any kind of situation. And first of all, we have to insist on the family members. Then we can go outside. Okay, and negativity. We are in this situation. Various kinds of negativity can come to our mind, and can distract us because of very much stress or anything else. So negativity or stress can be eradicated by relationship with caring and sharing our views and opinions with other people, our colleagues and manager and somebody else who we approach. This is very much appreciating. I like to thank one more time for this topic. And the last one is happiness. Actually, happiness is the state of mind. Say state of mind. This is very much important. When we are young, we say what we get that actually makes us pleasure, makes us so much happy, tranquil in our mind. It just brings a tranquility in our mind, and we get so much happy, so much placidity comes to our mind. So this kind of happiness or placidity comes how? It comes when we just make the three things, ever three things: relationship, negativity management, stress management, eradication negativity. These three things, when we can just manage in the perfect way, then we get the happiness. We get happiness. Happiness comes at the end of these three things. For what I have jotted down from your above speech, actually very much consequential and relevant. So I think if we are able to manage these three things above what you said, so we will get real, actual happiness in our mind, and it will just bring the placidity in our mind, and it will make us so much happy, I think so. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for selecting this kind of topic for the meeting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jasin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi, Sarvesh. Saeed.
Yeah, I said.
Yeah, yeah, as usual, very good topic, and I can relate all this topic with my daily life. I feel like I'm also in midlife crisis. However, yeah, it's very hard, you know, to be positive. And nowadays, there is a lot of outsourcing, like Facebooking and other social media platforms there, is make you sometimes nuts, make you sometimes jealous, make you sometimes really reactive. So yeah, I know it is really hard for any of us, any age, regardless of age or the time and location. Uh, like most of the things nowadays is making us very sometimes very emotional, very bring us down, negative things, those kind of things that we are evolving every day because of our, like, you can say, you can blame like technology, and the people, human life, behavior of human life, those kind of things. Uh, Sometimes I feel in my personal life, I feel like very demotivated. Sometimes I'm reacting without without any sense. Later on, I realized that I shouldn't be reactive that much. I should be more proactive or thinking positively to solve these issues. Sometimes in workplace also, a lot of things once we see the on my plate, I kind of like getting more reactive, or my behavior is sometimes is maybe hurting somebody's, because as I told you, there's a lot of things is going on surrounding you, so that make you mm, uh, like that provocating you to make it not like become nurse sometimes, and negative, make yourself down. So uh, but others the topics you also mentioned on your things, how you can overcome this situation, have healthy food habit and other things is really good. I can relate these things with my real in my personal life too. So thank you again. uh, uh, Also the be sociable, you say, on the stress management, it is also as good exercise, learn to be mentally active. Yeah, this kind of very good things. Thank you, Sarvesh, for picking these topics.
Yeah, thank you, Said.
No problem.
Okay, Sarvesh, Amulya, I'd like to say something. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I am.
Yes,
Okay.
Amol, can hear you.
So, like, I would like to say some points I really like what you said. It's about you, how you handle your mind, whether you have to be away from the negative thoughts, negative things around you, and think positive. So, I feel like one example I would give. Uh, Recently I was on leave, and before going on leave, like I used to see this COVID news every now and then. So I was literally scared to go out outside the house. I was not even going outside the gate. So, and the situation was such that I had a family emergency, so I had to go out. I had to look after the family member. So before that situation come into picture, I was like literally going through the stats, if someone's the count is increased of the people in India, and that literally made me like a negative sort of thing, like very much scared. That thing was there in my mind that, hey, if I go out here I might get. But the next situation was that I had to go because a family member needed me. So during those 2 weeks, like I completely was not in touch with the news, what's happening. So I saw that during that 10 days, like I was away and distressed from this COVID situation. I was totally focused on what I need to deliver at that moment. So when I came back, like I told my mom also and dad, like just change the news, because if you go and check the news, you will always have that logo, that image of COVID virus. So just change the news, because they keep that background in such a way that you get scared. You looking at that only you get scared. Maybe once in a day you just check the stats, what's the number, that's it. You don't need to see those images. You don't need to see those people taking to the hospital or such things. So keeping yourself away from negative thoughts and thinking positive will actually help you overcome the situation. I know it's a bad situation, it's the reality, but too much thinking about it also may will make you more stressful. So I think that's what you covered. So I could relate that to my practical example. That's it, Sarvesh.
Yeah, thank you, Aman. Yeah, I think sometimes, like recently, I did that because a lot of things were getting fed about Corona, which really did not make much of a difference to me. So I decided to shut out those kind of feeds or those kind of news, and instead concentrate on something which is more relevant to my daily life. Like because luckily we are safe,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we yeah. So in that way, I think we don't need to go to that section or to that level of news feeds, which actually made me think like it's not really affecting me that much, and it's just giving me stress and nothing else. So yeah, as you said, like you did it with the TV, I did it with the social media and kind of. So yeah, thank you, Amol. Okay, so if anybody doesn't have anything else to say, then we can close the session. Okay, thank you guys, thank you everyone for joining.